Go ahead and jump right in. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday, August 8th for our Small Business Bootcamp. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services. And we're glad to have you with us today. As we like to do, we like to start by first thanking all of our community partners. We could not do this without their time, their effort, and their expertise. This is just a sample list of the 120 plus community partners that have helped with the boot camp with over 200 different presenters. So we're very glad to have them with us. So for those that are new, the Small Business Boot Camp is designed to help small businesses prepare, plan, and grow. It is a Tuesday morning, every Tuesday morning, well, just about every Tuesday morning. We have a few days off, but from holidays and other things, but nearly every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. we do the Small Business Boot Camp. It is also a series of workshops that go with that. And the workshops, we do one a quarter. Some are in person, some are virtual. Depends on the topic and the presenters. But for example, tomorrow we have our Phoenix Business Journal workshop, which is in person only here at the Arizona Commerce Authority's offices. But we will be having other ones throughout the year and throughout next year that we have coming up with more virtual ones as well. So again, it's the weekly webinars and workshops, and then it's also the content library. So from the beginning, we've recorded all of our webinars, and we have nearly all of them posted in the content library. There's a few that we could not due to some licensing requirements of the presenters and the materials. But we have well over 250 recorded webinars in our content library that you can access at any time. There's no cost to access them. And you can review or watch the recorded video. You can download the slide decks and any other materials that the presenters may have wanted to provide for that. So it is a great resource to visit even after watching the webinar. If you watch it live, you can go back and get the slide deck from the content library, usually the following day. Also, the ACA has a number of programs that help support small businesses. We have our Arizona Career Readiness Credential, the Arizona Innovation Challenge, which I'll talk about that here in a little bit, the Arizona MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, for our manufacturers, small to medium-sized manufacturers, the Arizona State Trade Expansion Program, Arizona at Work, and then our Small Business Services. One of the great pieces of the Small Business Services team is the Small Business Checklist. This is an online interactive resource that helps entrepreneurs identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels. You can also find other information in the checklist on business formation, entities, different types of entities, procurement, marketing, a lot of other information. It's a very in-depth resource available to you on our website. I mentioned I would share a little bit about the Arizona Innovation Challenge, otherwise known as the AIC. This is the state's premier, and it's one of the nation's premier business plan competitions for Arizona companies and for Arizona innovation technology companies that are looking to commercialize and scale their businesses. The applications for this business plan competition are currently open, and it is a great program, and the finalists for the business plan competition get to go into the Venture Ready program, which is a world-class accelerator for those businesses. So it's a great opportunity for all our tech businesses out there. Take a look at it. We'll post the information on that in the chat, the links to our webpage for it. So some of our upcoming sessions we're excited about. We have best practices for commercial real estate for small businesses. This is looking from the tenant side for tenant support. So for all of you that have commercial real estate that you're renting from somebody, this is a great session for you. And then embracing brand authenticity amongst copycat culture. We're looking forward to that. And then we also have mastering the P&L, unlocking its potential for efficient business operations. And that's a great session. And it's going to be very interactive. And the presenter for that one uses some great examples from his own small business that he ran for, I believe, 15 years. So we're going to have some hands-on real world P&Ls you get to look at in that as well. So a lot of great upcoming sessions. We hope you can join us for those. But we're all here today for today's session. So let's jump right into today's session. We have Stephanie Sims, the founder of Financeability. Stephanie is a very accomplished business person and also a very involved mentor for the startups around the state. So we're excited to have Stephanie with us today. She's been involved in a lot of the ACA programming, and we're glad she can be with us. So Stephanie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn the time over to you. And while Stephanie's getting set up, during the presentation, if you have questions, please post those in the Q&A, and we'll leverage the chat for some interaction. So one thing we want to see in the chat real quick is, where are you tuning in from? What city are you from? And we like to hear that and see where we've got people. And if you're out of state, post up your state.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. And it's a pleasure to be with everybody here today to talk about building your path to profitability. Piggybacking a little bit on Robert, getting you guys talking in the chat, I'd love to hear from you all when you're telling us where you're coming from, what your biggest profit worry might be, or what burning question you had that brought you to today's session. I'm going to encourage you throughout this presentation to think about everything you're doing in your business. Excuse me, everything you're doing in your business as an investment. And you've chosen to be here today. You've chosen to make an investment of time to be part of this webinar. And so I want to make sure that you get value from it. So I also want you thinking about not just what's your biggest question, but what would make this experience, this conversation that we're going to have in the next 45 to 50 minutes, valuable for you. As Robert mentioned, if you do have specific questions, either about the material or about how it might apply to your business, please put those in the Q&A function. You can share profit worries, what would make a big win, and where you're from in the chat. For those of you who have not been part of a session that I've led before, I will tell you that we cover a lot of information, but what I do is break it into 3 parts so that at the end of each section, we can take time to answer the questions that are specific to that section. That way it feels like you're getting your questions answered all along instead of having to hold them until the very end. Again, my goal, although I do have a lot of information to share, my goal is really to make sure that you get value from today's session. So there are no silly questions. Just be sure to put them in the Q&A so that we can see them and we make sure we answer them. Robert already told you a little bit about myself. None of this stuff is interesting other than the fact that if you'd like to connect with me, the best place to do that is on LinkedIn. I am relatively active there, and you can find me as Stephanie J. Sims on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you and learn more about your business and figure out ways that I can answer other questions you've got. So please don't hesitate to do that. I would encourage you also maybe to connect with each other and to start building a community of support for your venture wherever you are in the development process, whether you're starting out, whether you've been in business for a couple of years, or whether you've been, geez Louise, what's going on? Whether you've been doing this for about 10 years or more, you always need that community of support. And so I would say that there are, in my experience, a lot of supportive business owners here in Arizona and across the US that want to expand their networks, and LinkedIn can be a great tool for doing that. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, as I mentioned, we're going to break this session into 3 sections. We want to help you understand that you have a path to profitability. And what that really means is thinking about and looking at the numbers in your business. So first off, we're going to talk about a few helpful frameworks for doing that. I know that there is a session coming up specifically about the profit and loss statement. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the statements themselves, but we're going to look at some different approaches that can help you understand what those statements might be telling you. Then we're going to dive into what the numbers say to you, why it's important, We're going to talk a little bit about what I call your economic story. That's the story that the numbers are telling you so that you can make better decisions. And then lastly, we're going to get a little bit more tactical or practical, and we're going to look at where the numbers might come from in your business so that you can actually build a system, kind of a navigation system inside of your business that helps you understand what's happening and how to make better decisions going forward so you stay on the right path for building the business that you always dreamed of building. Whoop. So let's talk a little bit about these frameworks. It is challenging. My dad's a CPA and I'm not a CPA by choice. I decided accounting was not really for me. And so most of the companies and founders that I speak with are not accounting folks. And so a lot of times when you talk about financials or when you hear somebody talking about profit and loss or accounting, it feels very hard to connect to the real world and to what you're doing in your business every day. So I want to give you a couple of frameworks. We're going to start with accounting, but then we're going to see how we can transform that into something that we can actually use every day in our business. So when you think about the world of accounting, accounting looks at your business in three different sort of snapshots. Accounting looks at your business through a statement called the profit and loss, which tells you, did what you sell this period exceed how much it costs you to sell it and to run your business? That is what a lot of people consider the principal statement that you're going to get from your accounting, and it helps you understand if you're getting profitable. So that's very helpful. But accounting also looks at your business in two other ways, one of which is super important for you, especially in the early stages. One is your cash flow statement. So that tells you not just did you make a profit on what you sold, but did you actually bring in enough cash to cover the costs that you had to pay this month? Because as we all know, not everything neatly lines up with when we sold the product that we sold or the service that we sold. We might have insurance that we have to pay once a year, even though on our profit and loss statement that shows up in monthly increments, the cash actually leaves our bank account on the day that we make the payment. And so it's important not just to understand if we are profitable through the profit and loss statement, but also to understand that we're in a successful cash position and to understand that we have enough cash to continue operating our business successfully for the future. So profit and loss and cash flow. The last statement that accounting focuses on, and this is particularly important as you start to think about perhaps external financing through a bank or through other debt instruments, is the balance sheet. So this essentially says, okay, look, after everything you did this period, after everything you sold and all the expenses you had and all the cash that moved in and out of your business, did you actually increase the value of your own equity in this company? And really all that means is the value of the assets that you have greater and growing, greater than the liabilities, and does it continue to grow over time? Okay, so that's how accounting looks at the world. And again, those are important statements for you to have, but a lot of times they aren't super useful when you get into a conversation with somebody about financials. That the reason for this is that a lot of times when people talk about financials, they can actually mean many different things. They might mean the accounting world, which is what a lot of people call the actuals, excuse me, in your business. This is what you're using to send to the IRS to decide if you have to pay taxes. This is what you'll be using for any legal agreements that you might have where you have to report on the performance of your business. But the reality is that there's two other components of your financials that are also super important. One of them is what a lot of people call the metrics of your business. This is KPIs and unit economics. We're going to talk quite a bit about that today because that's how you can manage the day-to-day decisions inside your business more successfully. Accounting usually happens at the end of a period, like at the end of a month, and then at the end of a quarter, and at the end of the year. But you really need data that's going to help you make decisions day to day. Okay, and that's where KPIs and unit economics can be really valuable. And then there's a third kind of leg of this stool, which is projections or financial modeling. You may have heard it called budgeting, but it's basically, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Because it's great to know what happened in the past, but you also need to know where you're going, right? And so I want you to be aware that when someone's talking about financials, you may immediately think they're talking about your accounting, but they might be talking about one of these other elements as well. So keep that in mind if someone says, I need to see your financials, or let's talk about your financials, and maybe ask some clarifying questions before you dive right in with showing them your profit and loss statement. what I want to help you understand is that these different elements of your financials are actually part of telling the economic story of your business. And you're writing that story every single day. Your accounting data tells you where you've been. And that's super important, not only to avoid going around in circles, but also to celebrate the success of how far you've come since you launched your business, or you changed your service or product offerings. So the accounting has a lot of value, but it doesn't tell you everything. The KPIs and your unit economics are the numbers of your present. They tell you kind of where you are today, and they help you iterate in sort of an experimentation mentality that can keep you from getting stuck on a path that's not actually serving you and not taking your business in the direction that you want it to go. And then the story of your future, the numbers of your future, are these projections or budget or financial model. Okay. Now, you'll notice that KPIs and numbers are in the middle because that's what we're going to spend a lot of time on. But each of these elements is important for you to understand and to utilize in your business, because you know very well you can't tell a story in just one time period, right? You need to be able to see all of these, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going at the same time to continue to make good decisions. Okay, so this framework, I've found, having shared it with quite a few people, can be an easier way for you to understand and kind of situate yourself when you're thinking about the numbers in your business. You don't have to think about all of them at the same time. Realize where you are and decide which numbers are important to focus on right now. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're really going to talk today about understanding your path to profitability and using numbers that help you make better day-to-day decisions to get on that path and to keep moving towards growth. Okay, the numbers, although I know that for a lot of people, especially numbers that have a dollar sign in front of them, they can be scary, right? But I want to encourage you to shift your mindset away from these numbers are like a grade that somebody else is kind of imposing on my business. And I want you to start to see these numbers as something that can give you better information so that you can make better decisions. The numbers can really be helpful for three reasons. The first reason is, as business owners, a lot of times we are very passionate about the problem that we're solving, about the clients that we're helping, about the team that we've built, and about the freedom that being an entrepreneur really provides to us. And sometimes that deep emotional attachment that we have can impact our decision-making in a bad way. So having the numbers can sort of balance the passion and the drive that you have in your business to see the data perspective as well. It's great to want to continue to do something, but if all of the information you have says that it's not a good decision for your business, then maybe it's time to take a step back or to just take a cooling off period. And we'll talk about ways that you can do that a little bit later in the presentation. But the numbers can help you get a little bit better perspective because we all are so passionate about what we're doing. The numbers also, like we talked about when I mentioned the accounting being able to help you celebrate, the numbers are a way for you to measure progress. We know that nothing happens overnight, right? Everybody jokes about the 10-year overnight success that we see in the press. But the reality is it's important for you to be able to see that you're making progress. And it's nice to be able to see it in a very concrete way. And the data and numbers in your business can do that for you. Ultimately, though, the real value in the numbers is to help you recognize your decision-making, the decisions that you've made in the past, and to help you improve in the areas where maybe you didn't have enough information or your decision, the assumptions on which you based your decision were not correct, so that you can make a better decision in the future, right? So the idea is that the numbers can be very valuable to you as an advisor almost to help you get perspective and make better decisions in the future. So to expand a little bit on that notion of sort of past, present, future, you can think about your accounting as reporting, right? It tells you what happened. You can think about your KPIs and your unit economics as this sort of experimentation or action phase. And then obviously the projections are this, what do I think is going to happen in the future? Okay. The other thing that's important to note is that sometimes accounting, as we talked about before, is not really designed for founders or entrepreneurs. And so you might get more value from focusing not only on the KPIs that you can set up and use to take action today, but also on this sort of forward-looking projection that's going to allow you to envision the future, the world as you want to see it, right? So the idea here is to really keep yourself situated across these 3 time periods, but to not get stuck in any one place, particularly if the data that you're getting from that area is not necessarily serving you in making better decisions. Okay. The reason this is important is because ultimately what you want to build in your business is what I call a virtuous cycle. And the numbers are going to help you do this, right? So let's say that you're very early stage and you're just trying to figure out what your business looks like. Well, maybe you're going to start down here running some experiments, right? Maybe you're going to test some Facebook ads or some LinkedIn ads, or you're going to go to a conference, right? That's going to be a small experiment. What you want to be sure you're doing, because you're going to invest time and money in doing that, is that you have a way of determining whether that was a successful experiment. Did it get you in contact with good clients? Did it get you in contact with potential partners? Did you make a sale if your business is such that you can sell in those environments, right? But you want to be sure that not only are you running experiments, but you're gathering data. And when you gather that data, then you can start to compare different experiments to each other. And we'll look at an example of this later in the presentation. But you can start to compare different experiments to each other, and you can start to figure out which one should get more investment. What should you keep doing, and what should you stop doing? Once you understand how to compare activities and experiments to each other, then you can start to sort of sum all of those activities up and reallocate the resources that you have to create a big picture view and decide what your sort of next milestone should be in your business. This might mean, if you're very early stage, I want to get my first client by the end of the year. Well, it's great to have that as a goal, but if you don't actually understand the mechanics of, what are you going to do and how much you have to invest to get that first client, it's going to be really hard for you to be successful. So I would encourage you, again, not to look at the numbers as sort of a grade that somebody like stamps on your forehead and says good or bad, but to look at the numbers as a way to help you build this cycle that helps you, that really encourages you to go in the right direction and to invest your resources in a wiser way. So one way to do kind of an analysis on your business when you're thinking about this is, instead of just looking at your total sales and your total costs, which can be a little bit overwhelming, you can actually calculate something we call unit economics. Now, to do this, you take, for example, your P&L, your profit and loss statement, you identify your unit, and we're going to look at an example in a minute. You then average your revenues and costs over that number of units, right? And so the idea is, you can say, okay, great. Instead of knowing just total how much revenue I had and how much cost I had, now I know what an average customer or project or cart, if you're an e-commerce business, looks like. Then you can start to look at really interesting trends in your business and decide what is below average, which maybe I just don't want to do anymore, and what are the things that I'm doing that are above average. And I'm going to say this probably 10 more times before we leave each other today, but one of the best things you can do for your business is not to do more, it's to know what you should stop doing, right? So don't always think that when you do all this work, it means you add 15 things to your to-do list. A lot of times this can give you some relief, because it can tell you, you don't need to be on 15 different social media platforms, right? You should pick the 2 or 3 that are actually bringing you the best results. So thinking about your business in terms of unit economics can be really valuable, because it helps you understand where you need to focus time and energy to actually make things better. So we're going to look at a little example here. And we're gonna take first, this example is an e-commerce business, right? So it's somebody who maybe sells something through a Shopify platform. And they've done this calculation and they've said, oh, okay, so when I look at my revenues, it looks like my average order value is $225 today, right? They think about what it costs them to either make those products or to buy those products and then to package them and then to ship them to that client. And they calculate that that's $180. We call that COGS in accounting language. And so they know that for a sale, an average cart of $225, their COGS is $180. And that means that they have what's called a gross margin, which is how much money is left over after you've provided your product or service, a gross margin of $45. Then they can start to think about things like, well, how much does it cost me to get that customer? That's my sales and marketing expense. How much does it cost me to keep that customer happy, or when they have questions? That's customer service. How much does it cost me to develop specific, in this case, maybe they're doing custom monogramming, let's say. How much does it cost me to develop that customization? And then how much does it cost me just to run my business, which is called general administrative? And you can see that right now, it's costing a lot of money to attract that customer. And we're spending a lot of money on customer service, even though right now we don't have anyone on staff, or maybe we're doing this on our own and we're not paying ourselves a salary. Okay. So right now, today, if I look at this on a unit basis, I'm losing $50 for every customer that buys from me. Clearly, that's not sustainable, right? First off, it's not great for you, but it's not sustainable. That means that my business is not giving me money. It's not making a profit. It's actually taking money, right? So using this information, we would want to be able to plot a path to making this number positive, right? Because our goal is to have a profitable business so that we can pay ourselves a salary and we can build a team and we can benefit from creating this business. So already by looking at this data, I could say, where is my biggest expense? Where's the place I'm spending the most money per unit? Well, clearly that's on my cost of goods sold, right? And so if I was going to do one thing to try to improve my profitability, I would probably want to focus on this number because that's the biggest number, right? If I can get this number down, then everything else gets easier. So let's say that I spent 18 months and I jumped over here, right? I spent 18 months working on negotiating better deals with my suppliers, or I changed my packaging so it was less expensive, or I changed my shipment company and got a better bulk rate on my shipment. But I was able, by doing intensive work over 18 months, to reduce my cost of goods sold by $30. Now, that's a pretty impressive accomplishment all on its own, right? But the other big benefit is my gross margin is now $30 higher, right? So 66% higher than it was before, which is huge for my business. Then, because I was super ambitious and I decided to bring on a team, I also said I want to work on reducing how much it costs me to get those customers in my door. And let's say I was successful doing that, right? Okay, great. So not only did I reduce my COGS, but I reduced my sales and marketing. And over that 18-month period, I also was able to reduce the cost for customer service and the cost for this customization I do. And I was even able to add money to pay myself a salary. And I'm able, through those changes, because I knew where to focus time and energy, to get my business to profitability. And so the goal of all of these calculations and all of these numbers is not to have a pretty page that says, hey, I have numbers on it, but to help you know what to do, right? To help you understand, where should I focus time and energy first, and then second, and then third and fourth, right? It's really to help you prioritize. So that's an example of using unit economics to help you identify a path to profitability. Let's take a breath, because I talk really fast, and let's see if anyone has questions. I did not look in the Q&A. I will look right now. And Faith, if we have, if there's any questions floating around in the chat, please let me know. Now's the time. If anyone has questions, please put them in the Q&A. And I'm going to jump into the chat real quick. Okay, so I see Cindy says her continuous worry is getting clients to get a profit. Okay, and so Cindy, I'd love to hear, as we go through this presentation, if this perspective that we're getting is going to help you. One way to think about your spending is, what is the best investment right now to get to that first, second, third client. Okay, I would try to focus on that. Bilal asked how often we should review your statements. You should definitely be reviewing your accounting statements, your P&L and your balance sheet and your cash flow at least once a month. But I would encourage you to be looking at your KPIs and your unit economics more frequently, especially in the early stages when those are probably moving and you're trying to make a big impact, right? If you're working on your cost of goods sold, you want to be able to see pretty quickly whether or not what you're doing is working. Okay. Jim says, does QuickBooks have forecast capabilities? It will accept a budget, Jim, but it does not have the ability to forecast. Although I think what they're looking at now is basically allowing you to take historical performance and roll it forward. I would not consider that a forecasting capability. So hopefully that answers. Okay, Bilal says we are paid commissions. So I would think about your paid commissions, Bilal, as a cost of customer acquisition. And I would say you could do the same unit economics analysis, and where your commission cost would go would be here in sales and marketing, right? So you could still do the same analysis, but a big part of your sales and marketing cost would be commissions as opposed to it being advertising or something else. And if that didn't answer your question, let's get into the next section, and then we can try to answer it as well in the next section or at the end. Okay. So remember, we talked about this need to tell your own economic story, first to understand it and then to tell it and to write it and to tell it. What that really means is, how do you become a better investor in your own business? Okay. So we've had a couple of questions about projections. And so I want you guys to kind of, again, use sort of a practical approach to think about your projections and to even think about what success means for you. So first off, I want you to be thinking about what success looks like in the very long term for you. I think that's super important because that's what's going to pull you forward and help you make the right decision for your business. You may not want to be a $500 million business. You may want to build a business that serves your community and you can pass on to your kids. And that's awesome. But you need to be clear about that, because the way you build those two businesses will look very different. Okay. But when it comes to knowing if you're on the right path, whatever your vision for success of your business looks like, you really need three things. You need to know that you have a scalable, profitable business model. That means you need to know that you're not losing money on every customer or project or cart that you sell. You also need, especially in the early stages, a reasonable plan for getting to that profitability point, because I'm guessing a lot of you might be early stage and you're not profitable yet, but you need to know that you have a reasonable plan to get there. And then the other piece, which a lot of people leave out, they build the plan, but they don't really have a method for tracking their progress against that plan. They get to the end of the month or maybe the end of the quarter and they look at their P&L and they say, oh, well, my budget was X and my P&L says Y. So we're still making money overall. Okay, let's call it good. And I don't want to look at the numbers anymore. Unfortunately, excuse me, unfortunately for you, if that's your approach, you're missing out on a lot of really valuable data. First off, because you're only doing it monthly, but second off, because you don't have the level of detail to help you decide which of the investments you're making in your business are actually helping you and which ones you should simply stop doing. Remember, when you stop doing things, that frees up resources to do other things that you already know are working. And that's where you really get into a exciting opportunity for your business, right? Because once you can really focus resources on what's working, you can scale and grow faster. So one of the things when I speak to folks about this, they think of investment as like money. And it's true that a lot of times, one of the biggest investments you're going to make in your business is financial. You will put your personal money into the business. But the reality is there's a lot of other things, especially in the early stages, that you're investing in your business that are not directly related to money, but that are equally, if not more valuable. Particularly the amount of time, energy, reputation, and sort of credibility and network that you have. The amount of that you invest in your business is huge in the beginning, right? You're maybe not paying yourself anything or maybe very little. So it's not showing up as a big expense on your financials. But the reality is, if you're spending a ton of time talking to potential clients or working with potential partners or building out your product or service, all of that time is a massive investment that you're making in your business. And so the first thing you ought to do is recognize that. And quite often, my parents were entrepreneurs as well. Quite often, it comes to us as the entrepreneur. We're like, well, that needs to be done and nobody else is here to do it. So I'm going to stick it on my list and I'm going to do it. Unfortunately, we kind of tend to devalue our time. And we also think that there is an infinite supply of it. And the reality is we are amazing. Entrepreneurs are amazing, but we cannot create more hours in the day. And we cannot for very long work 24 hours a day and be successful at it. And so I would encourage you not just to look at how much money you've invested, but also to do sort of an audit or an analysis on the amount of time that you're investing in your business and the different activities that you're investing your time in. And I would encourage you to get in this habit of, if you're going to invest anything, time, energy, money, network, credibility, whatever, I would start to think about, how do you define a return, or how do you define success for that investment? So for example, when I asked you at the beginning of this session, I said to you, hey, you're about to make an investment of an hour. What would make this time valuable for you? That sort of thinking is what I'd like you to get in the habit of doing, not just about webinars like this one, but about things like making a Costco run in the middle of the day because things didn't get ordered in the way that they needed to, or staying, working until 10 o'clock at night to do some paperwork because there's nobody else to do it. Those things may need to be done, but the question you need to ask yourself is, am I the right person to do it? And how do I know if it's being done correctly, right? Because a lot of times those two things go together. You may do it, but you might not be the right person to do it, which means that it might not get done correctly, which means that ultimately you doing it yourself for free is actually going to get you a worse result than if you paid somebody else to do it. Okay. So I just want to get you guys thinking in this sort of investor mindset so that you can start to analyze not just the money that you're spending, but also the time that you're investing in your business to make sure that you're getting value for it. Okay. And I want to introduce you to a different way of thinking about your business that is aligned with accounting, but that, in my experience, makes a lot more sense for entrepreneurs and can make all of this analysis a lot easier for you. So when you think about your business, you really only have to do, in any business, you really only have to do 5 things. You have to be able to attract buyers, right? People who are going to buy your product or service. Then you have to be able to deliver that solution, your product or service, to the people who paid you for it, right? Then you need to delight the folks who've already paid you, either because your business model is such that they're going to continue to buy, like if you're a subscription model, you want them to be happy so they continue to buy from you. Or if you're more of a project or a single purchase, you want to keep them happy so that they can refer you to potential other clients, they can give you testimonials that you can use in your marketing, or they can generally increase your net promoter score to help you acquire other customers, even though it won't be their own money that they're spending. Okay, so attracting buyers, delivering your solution, delighting the clients you have. And then you also need to think about, as you're growing, building new offers. This might mean taking the product or service you already have and selling it into a new market, right? So you have to kind of revamp your marketing and figure out how to get this new set of ideal clients to buy from you. Or it could mean that you've got great relationships with the clients you already have and you want to build an additional offering, like you want to create a new product or a new service that would also serve those clients. In either case, that effort is quite different than simply attracting more people to buy or delivering the thing that you've already built. But you need to do that so you can continue to grow your business. And then the last thing there in the center is you need to have a relatively strong support system for your business. This means making sure that you have contracts that are legally binding and making sure that you have appropriate insurance coverage. And to the extent that you are a physical product business, maybe you need a physical location, right? So thinking about these 5 things that you have to do can get you out of the accounting world and into things that feel a lot more concrete so that you don't get stuck on the accounting terminology and you can start to think about these things in a more practical way and take action on them. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to look at a different business model. This is going to be a SaaS subscription model, but we're going to also recast the P&L that we looked at before using this new methodology, right? Just using these different terms to help it make a little more sense for you. So let's say that we're thinking about a software platform that today we look at our business and we think about our business as I sell monthly subscriptions. Okay, so here's what today my business looks like. I sell a monthly subscription for $100. I have very low cost to deliver it because it's a software platform. So my gross margin is relatively high, which is what we would expect with a software platform. But I'm spending a lot of money to attract that customer, a whole lot of money, okay? And I'm spending a lot of money to keep that customer happy and to continue to build my platform and to support my business because I already have a team, right? I've already got people that are working. I've got, you know, a CFO maybe, and I've got some other folks on my team. And so I've got a little bit more cost here. We can see if I think about my business on a monthly subscription basis, I've got a pretty big problem, right? I am very far from being profitable on a monthly subscription basis. But in this case, if we think about how people are actually going to buy from us and how they're going to interact with us, we could realize that perhaps our customers are not going to stay with us for just 1 month, right? If we do a good job making them happy and we're making this big investment in delight, we want them to stay for a long time. And let's say that we see after we've been doing this for a while that our customers on average stay with us for an entire year. And so we can shift our thinking from subscriptions, my unit is subscriptions, we can shift our thinking from subscriptions to customers. And so now if I'm thinking about my customer as my unit, then my unit economics look quite different because I'm looking at the value of their annual or their lifetime subscription, right? Which is 12 times the monthly subscription. Yes, my costs are still 12 times that, but I have a much bigger gross margin to work with. And where it gets really interesting is that I still only have to attract that customer once. So even when I get, even if I had not made progress in attracting the customer, I'd still be okay. But I've also made a big effort here to reduce my cost of attracting the customer, right? I have not changed how much it costs me to keep them happy because that was not what I was focused on. I'm spending about the same amount to continue to improve my product, and I'm spending exactly the same amount to support my business. So even though I have significantly higher other costs, if I look at my business this way and I make a single improvement in what it costs me to attract the customer, I'm actually profitable on a customer basis, okay? And so I wanted to show you guys this, not only to help you understand how you can use this in your own business, but to show you a different business model and to help you understand that the way you think about your units and the way you think about this economic view of your business can evolve over time, and that's normal. It should, based on how you continue to evolve your thinking, okay? So that was our second unit economics example, and I see we've got a couple of questions. Okay, so Sylvia asks, if you already in debt as a business. So I'm guessing what you mean, Sylvia, is that you already have a loan. And so if you already have a loan and you're looking at your unit economics, what I would consider doing, although it's not correct in terms of accounting, but what I would consider doing is putting the cost of your monthly loan payments into your support costs. So you could start to see, are you paying back, are you profitable when you have to pay the loan back? That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it would be to say, how much profit do I get off of each unit? And then how many units do I have to sell each month so that I can pay back my loan? That would be another potential way of looking at it. I can't tell you exactly how much time it would take, but I think those are the two ways to approach that. Okay. Iris is asking, how can entrepreneurs implement jobs and fair wages I'm sorry, Iris, I don't totally understand the question. I would say if you're thinking about where to put the wages or the salaries, they're going to be in each of the areas. So if you have a person who leads your sales, then you would expect to see their salaries in this sort of attraction section. If it's the head of customer service, I would expect to see their salaries in the light section, right? You know, you as the owner, your salary would probably be down here in support. But I'm not sure if I actually answered your question. So in the interest of time, maybe let's keep going. And if you want to clarify the question, happy to take it again. Okay. And it doesn't look like there's anything in chat. So let's keep rolling. We are on the home stretch. We've talked about sort of conceptually how you should look at the numbers, and we've talked about how you might want to analyze those numbers to get better information so you can make better decisions. But a lot of times people are like, okay, great, so I'm supposed to do something with the numbers, but where do I get them? Where should they come from? And so let's talk a little bit, because where the numbers come from depends on which numbers we're talking about. So we've already heard QuickBooks mentioned, right? So in the numbers of the past, this is probably the place that you think most often of, that you think of most often when you're thinking about where your numbers are, okay? Because most people who have already set up their business and started operating have some sort of accounting system. If you don't, I would highly encourage you to get one. I think it's essential. Even if you're outsourcing your bookkeeping, it is essential for you to be able to access your accounting system and for you to understand how the accounting system works, okay? Ultimately, the buck stops with you as the entrepreneur because you are the one making decisions. Remember that accounting is saying what has already happened, but you on a daily basis are kind of writing the story of what's going on now. And that's why it's so important for you to look at where you've already been so you can make better decisions today. Okay, so when you're thinking about your accounting system, you definitely need one. Most cloud accounting systems today have an interface directly with your bank so that you don't have to manually upload or type in transactions. Your banking transactions simply transfer directly over to your accounting system, and they have to be coded, which just means you have to decide what category of expense those transactions belong to. I would encourage you, again, if you're just starting out, I would encourage you to do it yourself so that you can not only keep a good handle on where your money is going, but you can also see how much time it really takes so that when you decide to outsource it, you're able to get a good sense of how much time it should take and whether or not the price that you're being offered to do that work feels appropriate for the amount of work that you know it to be. Okay. Now, keep in mind, as you start to grow fast, you'll have more transactions, you'll have more complexity. So don't think that things will always be the same, but having that personal experience will make it much easier for you to be able to outsource. I will simply say to you that there is no amazing accounting system because they're designed to track historical data, and that's what they're very good at. QuickBooks has recently made some moves to indicate that it is not as open to integrations as it has been in the past. I think they've deplatformed bill.com. So if you're thinking about QuickBooks and you need a lot of integrations because you work with multiple payment providers or you have other transactions that are going to be pulled into QuickBooks from a different system, I would verify very carefully that that will continue to exist. Other platforms may not have a specific interface for that, but platforms like Xero have an API that can sometimes, with a little bit of help from a coder, do the same thing and give you a lot more flexibility. You need to find out what's best for you, but I would definitely make sure that you have a solid, robust accounting system in place and that you know how to use it and have used it at least enough to understand what it takes to get the transactions coded every month. So this one's easy because there's lots of options on the market and they're pretty well known. When it comes to thinking about your KPIs, the numbers of the present, your unit economics, the tool that most people use is Excel, simply because everybody thinks about it quite differently, right? So I would let you know that there are some specialized KPI platforms and that within some platforms like Shopify, like Google AdWords, like other advertising platforms and other, different vendors you may interact with, those platforms themselves may also have some KPI dashboards that you can modify to give you information about that specific area of your business, right? So if we're talking about Google AdWords, you can get data about all the campaigns you run on Google AdWords inside of Google AdWords, but you still need to kind of bring all that data together so that you can see the full picture of what's happening in your business. So that will most likely happen within Excel, although there are a few specialized KPI platforms focused mainly on marketing. And then the last piece of the puzzle in terms of where the data comes from is your projections. So quite often, this is also going to be an Excel-based activity. You have two options here. You can try to build it yourself from scratch in Excel, which is quite challenging. It can be done, but most founders find that more effort than the result is worth. There are a series of Excel templates, either free or paid, that exist. And there are now a few specialized platforms that work on helping you build these projections. I would encourage you, just like you would do with your accounting system, I would encourage you to be very clear about what you need before you go and simply say, oh, great, here's a platform. They say they'll help me. I'm just going to get them to do it. You still need to be responsible for these numbers, even if you're using someone else's template or someone else's platform. Okay, so bottom line, all of this data should live in systems that you control, that you understand, and that you can use. All right. So when you start to think about how you put together all these numbers, I want you to remember this sort of wheel, if you will, of activities. And I want you to really be able to not just say, how do I attract buyers? How do I deliver my solution? How do I delight? How do I build? How do I support? Those are big questions, but I want you to be able to get down to the activity level, because this is where you get the value. And this is an example of something that we spoke about much earlier in the presentation. But if you want to really build a robust management system for your finances, this is a place where you can really make a lot of impact by using this kind of step-by-step analysis or step-by-step approach. So let's say that you have two options, and you can either try to go to a trade show and get prospects, or you could buy a prospect list. Somebody says, hey, I'll sell you this email list, and it costs, I don't know, $2,000, let's say. And you're trying to decide, okay, should I go to the trade show or should I buy the list? Well, you could do this analysis for both pieces. Here we've talked about what it would take to go to the trade show. So let's start by saying, if I go to the trade show, how many prospects do I expect to get? Well, I'm going to be there for 3 days. I'm going to put my little fishbowl and I'm going to say, enter your business card for a chance to win. And I want 500 people to put their business cards in my little fishbowl to win my $100 gift card on Amazon. Let's say that that's my approach. Okay, great. So I expect to get 500 prospects at this trade show. Then you're going to calculate how much resources needed. And again, here I would say you calculate not just the hard cost of traveling to the show and paying for the booth and the $100 gift card, but you should add the value of your time and anybody else's time who is going to be attending with you. Because otherwise, you're going to trick yourself into thinking that it's much cheaper than it really is. Okay, so you calculate what your cost is. You know that you're going to get 500 prospects from the trade show, and it's going to cost you $5,000. Clearly, these are round numbers just to make the example work. And then you can calculate and say, okay, each prospect from a trade show cost me $10. Okay, that's what, assuming everything goes the way I planned, that's what I know I can expect from a trade show, $10 per prospect. Then you can look at this purchase of the email list and you can say, oh, okay, so you told me that you want me to pay $2,000 for this email list. How many prospects are on it? And they say 1,000. Oh, okay, well, $2,000 to buy the list divided by 1,000 prospects means those prospects only cost me $2 per prospect. If I put on my hat as an investor and I say, what is the most efficient use of my resources? It's the $2 prospect as opposed to the $10 prospect I would get from the trade show. Now, I might invest that $2 and discover that those prospects are not great, or I might talk to other people who bought email lists from this person and discover that those prospects are not great and still decide to go to the trade show. But now I know that I have an option. And I know that the best use of resources, if the quality of the prospects is the same, would be to get those prospects at $2 each instead of getting them at $10 each. So that's how you can use this approach to help you make those day-to-day decisions and really feel like you're making the most of the resources that you have, as long as you continue to include your time. Okay. So last thing I want to share with you guys is that I told you at the beginning, I wanted this to be actionable. I wanted you to be able to go and do something with this. So even if you don't have an accounting system, even if you don't know anything about profit and loss statements and anything else, although you should definitely find out, you should come to the event on I think it was the 26th, right? When you're talking about the P&L, you should definitely continue to educate yourself. But even if you don't have any of that, you can do this exercise today. You could get a list of all the bank transactions for the past month. You can download it off your online banking. You could even print out your statement, like it doesn't matter, but get your transaction list and look at each transaction. Label each of those transactions. This is a must-have for my business. This is a nice to have for my business, or this is a why do I have this for my business? The very next thing you can do is look at all the why do I have these and get rid of any of them where you don't have a clear answer, where you don't know exactly what that expense does for your business. Then once you've gotten rid of all of those, already you'll have saved some money, right? Because you'll shut those subscriptions down, or you'll stop spending making those investments. Then you can choose the definition of success for each of your musts and your nice to haves. And already you'll have so much more visibility into what's happening in your business that you could probably make several adjustments just based on this exercise that would give you more cash to invest in the things that are actually working in your business as you start to identify them using this process. Okay, so I know we're almost at time. I want to be sure that we answer any questions we've got. And I think there's one in Q&A. Specialized KPI platforms for sales organizations. I think it depends. It's usually more industry specific, Bilal. He's asking about some examples of KPI platforms for sales organizations. I mean, obviously Salesforce is one of them, but that's a monster. I don't know that I would go with that. If you're trying to kind of organize your entire funnel, I think Klaviyo is kind of the platform of choice right now, but there used to be one called Marketo. There used to be several where essentially you can consolidate all your marketing data and you can visualize how your funnel works. And that goes all the way through to the sales process. So hopefully that helps. So someone is saying that they got a mentor who's offering to mentor you and provide a funnel list for $15,000. I would say that feels very expensive, especially for a new entrepreneur. I would definitely ask more questions to understand exactly what that's included and what that includes and what the deliverables would be for that. I can't tell you if you should accept or not, but that certainly feels like a big number for an early stage business, unless that person might be saying that they're going to be your salesperson, right? If they're going to actually bring you that business, then perhaps that makes sense. But I would definitely ask more questions there. Okay, and I think that's it. Thank you so much. I know we're at time. Robert, I'll turn it back over to you. I just want to say, actually, I'll turn it back over to you after I say one more thing, because I just can't be quiet. I want everybody to understand money is only a tool. Money is not what's going to make your business successful. So equipping yourself with all this data is how you get better as an entrepreneur so that you can be more successful. And so I just want you to walk away thinking that not only are there things you can take action on, but you are perfectly and eminently capable of learning how to manage the financials of your business. And I want to see you succeed in doing that. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for investing in yourself. And that's all.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Great presentation. There were a lot of really good slides. So a reminder, everybody, the slide deck will be posted in the content library probably tomorrow morning, if not later this afternoon. but it usually takes about a day to get that up. So you'll be able to download those slides and refer to them. So we appreciate Stephanie being with us. We want to appreciate all of you being with us as well today. We hope this was beneficial to you. We also hope to see you next week at our next boot camp. But until then, we will go ahead and wrap up and wish you to have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.